It's been a good cool summer though for me. I've enjoyed it not being so hot. But anyway, it's good to be here this morning, and I really thank you all for all the support you give me. This morning we're going to expound on the love of Christ a little bit. When he did meet with the disciples around the table, he showed them a lot of love. He showed them love that they sometimes didn't understand. And he showed other people love that they really didn't understand at times, because he really did make a lot of difference in people's lives at that time. We're going to be in 1 John this morning, chapter 3. That's the main text. But in 1 John, there were some things going on that John wrote to these people about, that it didn't seem quite right to him. In 1 John 3, 11 through 23, it's a passage about loving one another. This is the message you heard from the beginning. We should love one another. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. Do not be surprised, my brothers, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed death to life because we love our brothers. Anyone who does not love remains in death. Anyone who hates his brother is a murderer. And you know that no murderer has eternal life in him. This is how we know that love is. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need, but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with the actions and in truth. This then is how we know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts in the rest of in his presence, wherever our hearts condemn us. For God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God, and receive from him anything we ask, because we obey his commands and do what pleases him. And this is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us. Those who obey his commands live in him, and he in them. And this is how we know that he lives in us. We know it by the Spirit he gave us. We know it by the Spirit he gave us. That's a pretty strong statement. The Spirit, in this case, is very strong. At the time this was written, the problem that John was addressing was a group of people that were trying to teach some things that weren't quite right. And it was they were not showing Christians the love they should. These teachings were counterproductive to a lot of Christ's teachings. So John was addressing this in order to make people understand the love of Christ and where they needed to go with it and how they needed to show it to other people. In his letter, John was writing to a group of Christians probably in the province of Asia, modern Turkey as we know it now, trying to make sure that these Christians had some hope for the future and that they could be saved from the descent in the fiery place called Hades. And this is the hope that they were looking for. And in Hades, they understood that the flesh would burn and it would be agony throughout the rest of eternity as far as they knew on them, because it would be take their souls and just turn them upside down and make them very uncomfortable. One of the problems this time was that new Christians were being taught by some false teachers and they were accepting these teachers. And these people were the Gnostics. You've heard of Gnosticism. So from this teaching, they could only have faith through special knowledge. They could only get their souls to heaven by this special knowledge that the Gnostics said that that's what they had to have. In the Greek, this is gnosis. Gnosticism came from these teachings where the bodies were made of matter. And our bodies, as they were matter from the dust of the earth, as they were taught in the beginning, that's what God created us from, that's what carries on. They were taught from these people that matter was evil, and that this made them evil. It made their bodies evil. And they were teaching that there was no way for them to keep their bodies from being evil. This was being taught by the teachers to these new Christians, and they were accepting it. And the reason they were accepting it is because they were mixing it in with a lot of things that came directly from the Bible. And you know how persuasive people can be sometimes. Well, they thought that this was something that they really needed to understand. It was just plain teachings of the world. People taking knowledge that they thought they had and trying to pass it on to someone else. Christ's body to the Gnostics was not a body. It was spirit. And that's how they were separating things for these new Christians. They were trying to tell them that Christ's body was not a real body. It was not of matter. It was of a spirit and spirit only. So if they could convince them that Christ was not the same as we are, which we know he was human, he was fully human, and he was fully spirit too. But this was something that they were using to spread some false knowledge so that they could get them to deviate away from the love of Christ. The Gnostics did some very horrendous things to their own body at times because they thought that they could just do that to whip their body into shape. And this special knowledge they were trying to get across to these new Christians were that they had to escape from their evil bodies at the end so that they could get their spirit into heaven. Which we know at this time that that's not what it actually comes across as. We need to be trying to escape evil all the time. We need to be trying to move forward in our lives and understand more and more about Christ and His teachings so that we can get away from these false rumors and false teachings. They thought that their bodies could not be accepted into heaven. Well, bodies, as we know them, we don't know exactly how that's going to work when we get there. But we do know we will be able to recognize that we are Christians. And we'll be able to recognize other Christians as far as I can understand. Gnosticism was a real problem for the first couple of centuries in the New World, and the forefathers addressed it a whole lot. Teachers of this religious belief used Bible passages to back them up. They tried to They would lead the believers into Gnosticism to understand since the body was evil, it didn't matter what kind of things they did to other human beings, because their bodies were made of matter too. They did some very, very illicit things in that century in the name of Christ. Some of those teachers did. And we don't need to do that. We need to understand the difference in being a body for Christ and being a Gnostic. The illicit acts that they're doing to other people were wrong. They were hurting people. Whenever it came to time to die, their spirit, they thought was able to escape, leave their earthly body, and go to heaven. Of course, this led to people doing all sorts of evil things. If you thought that you could do anything to anybody and get what you wanted, and everybody else thought that too, all the Christians, all the people in the world, you would probably do different things than you do now. I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm preaching to people that understand this. But we come in contact with people every day that don't understand this. The biblical solution for them, for this whole group of people, especially in this area, had to be that they needed to do what pleased Christ as he taught in the years just preceding this time. John had to remind them what he had taught. Since there were so many false teachers running around teaching this Gnosticism thing, it was easy to fall into that trap because they knew how to weave a good story. So what were these Christians actually supposed to do? What kind of things were they supposed to do in order to be on the right track for Christian teaching and not the false teaching? How could they be sure what they were learning and passing on to their children and others were the right things? John gave them some words of wisdom, and they dated all the way back, actually, to Genesis, to the beginning of time. And he was trying to teach the Israelites about him and how they should treat one another. God taught them to love one another. And in 1 John 3:1, he exclaims, he doesn't just say, he exclaims to them, how great is the love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. He gave us an honor doing that, saying that we were like him. He went on to say that these other people are teaching that you do not even know us, that they don't know them. They're teaching them that God is anything. God does not know anything about them. But they're teaching him that he tells them that the hope we have is knowing God through Christ, and what we should do to these ungodly things to ourselves and our people, know especially the Christians that share the common bondage of knowing Christ. He was letting them know that we have the knowledge within us because the Spirit is there. The Spirit has given us the knowledge to know what Christ wants us to do. We need to follow that. We need to read the Bible and understand it also. But we need to follow our conscience. He told them they should cleanse themselves of unrighteous living. Boy, I can't talk this morning. And sinful ways. Getting away from anyone getting away from anyone that has led them to this. Not just trying to hang around and be in the middle of the road, but get away from them. He taught them that living as they will not go to the devil. They will not misunderstand the Scriptures and just get away from these things. During his teaching, he made them understand that the anointing they had from Christ is still in them. It's still there. Just listen to it. And do not learn from these other people. Don't learn from people that don't know God. How can you know that? If you know a little bit about the Scripture, if you know a little bit, and really you should know a lot, but if you know just a little bit, when people start talking like this, you can understand they don't know God. They don't know Christ. They don't understand the true love of Christ. With this, John, again, was quick to tell them to love one another, to take care of one another. Don't hurt one another. He reminded them that the message was given to them from the beginning by God. It was always to love one another. It was never to hurt one another. God brought them through Egypt. He brought them through the valley of death in Psalms. He brought them through a lot of things. And the metaphor in the Psalms reading is so powerful. You can walk by death. You can be in amongst people that will try to kill you. Christ was. But if you believe and you hold on to the teaching that's in your heart and you understand the writings of the saints, you can have something to hold on to. You can have something that will carry you through these times when people are trying to teach you false teachings. He told them in 1 John 3:12 not to be like Cain. Cain belonged to the evil one, the devil, Satan, and he murdered his brother. He told them not to be like that. John said that the reason Cain murdered Abel was evil, that he was evil, and Abel was not. Abel was righteous. John goes on to say that anyone that even hates his brother has also committed murder. And anyone that commits murder cannot be in the presence of God. When he says this, doesn't that sound a little bit like jealousy? Doesn't that sound a little bit about envy? That's what Cain did. He envied Abel for being closer to God than he was. What about now? In the present times, what are some problems that are similar to these of old times? Can you think of any? What about some of the things you're being taught every day in your life? How many different ways have you heard lately that you can get to heaven from people that are not quite Christian? Doing good deeds. Some people think that that's all you need to do to get to heaven is do good deeds. Where's the love in it? Where's the love in just doing good deeds? If you just go out and help someone, where's the love in that? It might show a little bit, but maybe not a whole lot. What about some of the slogans? This was something that I found interesting once I got into it. Television or sports teams Have you listened to some of the slogans they have? I've got a few here. Bear with me. Baseball slogans. The first one hit me pretty good. Life is a game. Baseball is serious. This one has some pretty negative connotations. We're busting ours to kick yours. It's not life for me that way. Another one is, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Basketball slogans, of course, some of these are generic. They go along with all of them. One spirit, one team, one win. My blood, my sweat, your tears. Bowling. The first one was not even appropriate. I couldn't use it. The second one, what happens at the bowling alley stays at the bowling alley. That has some pretty negative connotations to it. Cheerleading. The referees have always been blind. It's our job to make them deaf. Football is trample the weak and hurl the dead. Golf. None of the logos have appropriate language to use. None of them at all. Hockey. Our goal is to deny yours. And another one for them is, if you can't play nice, play hockey. Softball. This is pretty cute. Well, in a way. Save your drama for your mama. We're playing here. Swimming is, I swim because I am too sexy for sports that require clothes. Volleyball, you just got served. There are a lot of other sports, and a lot of them use these same sayings, twisted a little bit, used a little different words, but they all mean a lot of the same. Cross country, soccer. Soccer is a pretty tough sport when you get out there. It doesn't look like it is till you get out there and try it. It's not for me. I can't handle it. But they use a lot of the same slogans, and most of them are negative when you look at them. Most of them are something to do with hurting someone or beating them unmercifully. Very seldom do you see any kind of slogan in sports that builds people up. They're all negative. Some of them deal with explicit sayings in nature that shouldn't be used. The Bible doesn't teach that. Some of the business slogans are even not good slogans. Some of the business slogans will try to make you think about things that really are not quite building people up. Of course, JVC, this is an electronics company. Their slogan is the perfect experience. Really? Is there such thing as a perfect experience? I don't know. Maybe to be with Christ, but they can't do that for you. A couple of these you're going to know just as soon as I tell you who they are. Just do it. Exactly, Nike. What about the company that uses that? Could this be good things always that they're thinking about? I don't think so. I've heard a lot of negative things implied from sports enthusiasts and athletes about just do it. Anything they can think of is fair game in their mind. The De Beers Diamond Company came out with this slogan, and it's been around a long time, and I had no idea that a diamond company is the one that did it to increase and help their sales. A diamond is forever. You've heard it, no telling how many times on television. It's the most expensive piece of rock on earth, as far as I'm concerned. Is that what you want to hang on to in your life? You want to make the saying, Christ is forever, your epitaph? Doesn't that seem more appropriate? He's there even when the diamonds are crushed, when they get broken. I know it's hard to break a diamond, but it is not impossible for Christ. Here's why. I don't know if you remember it or not. I do. Great taste, less filling. I see some smiles. This was for a beer company. They came up with this so that you would buy their product because it wouldn't fill you up as fast, and you could get more filling out of it, and you could drink more of it. Is that really a good thing? Here's the last one. Don't leave home without it. You know what that one is? That's a credit card company. American Express. Don't leave home without it. They would rather you would spend money on their card. Where does that leave you? If you're not diligent with your finances, it can leave you in a hole. And it's not the kind of hole that Christ wanted you to live in this economy now, or any economy, because you're paying interest. You're paying this company to use their money if you're not careful and pay your bill off every month. It's something that can follow you for a long time. A lot of these slogans, if you look closely at them for the ad agencies they come up with, they almost always appeal to our weaknesses. A lot of those weaknesses are for we want something we don't actually need, or we want something that would make us happy, or we think it would make us happy. Some of them have sexual connotations to them. Some of them have all kinds of things that they're trying to get people to participate in. If we're not careful, we will become numb to these things. We'll hear them so much. If you hear something every day, over and over and over, you get to where there's not much shock value to it. Or I do. A lot of these things in these ads also appeal to our jealous nature. Because somebody down the street's got a new vehicle, why shouldn't we have one? It doesn't matter if we can afford it or not. Why shouldn't we go get this? And that's what the automobile industry is really appealing to them. And some of the other companies, especially with high-priced items, they appeal to your jealous side. It's not that they want you to be totally jealous, but they want you to be jealous enough to come buy a new vehicle, or buy a new car, a house, or a new piece of property. Sometimes we don't even really need these things. But we go buy them anyway because we think we need them. Can we really be self-centered like that and be like Christ? Can we really think that we need these things and go get them and be the kind of people that we should be for Christ? What kind of self-centered things does this lead us to in the rest of our life? Do these slogans that I've mentioned really help us be friendly with other people? I don't think they would. I would be less likely to help someone if I thought I had to have this expensive item and go buy it, and then I can't pay the payments and help other people too. I end up being more self-centered because I have to be. It's kind of a machine that gets more and more. If we want more and more, we tend to think of others less and less. If we're able to do this, do we really have a better relationship with Christ? If I had everything I wanted in this world, would I really think that I need to be anybody's friend? Would I really think I need to help anybody get anything else? Can you see how this sounds a little bit like the Gnostics that they were fighting in the first century? They were doing things to their own bodies. They were doing things to other people in the name of Christ that they really didn't need to do. Are we doing things to ourselves now that will put us in a position where we can't help others as well? We can't reach out to them as well and help them understand Christ. Did they really have special knowledge then that would get them into heaven? Not really. They had the wrong information. They had the incorrect way of trying to go at things. They had less dignity for themselves, even though they thought they had this special knowledge. They treated even their own bodies with disrespect and indignant treatment. When they did these things against God, the teachings of God and all of this, John was trying his best to head this off. John wrote this for them. Can we get anything out of it now? I think we get a lot out of it. 1 John addresses a problem that was really a major setback for a lot of the Christians in that time. What do we need to know about salvation now? Is this something that we overlook sometimes? What about our attitude toward life? Do we ever say harsh things to other people? Think about coaches, referees. If you go to a real high-tension ball game, basketball, baseball, football, do you ever think the referees make a wrong call? And then do you every once in a while might yell a little bit in a little bit of a negative connotation towards that person because they didn't make the call like you thought he ought to make it? Well, go a little deeper. Have you ever said something that afterward maybe even that you said, oh, I shouldn't have said that? Because you might hurt somebody, another Christian. Have you ever been harsh towards somebody because they made a mistake? They did something that you thought they shouldn't have done, and you were a little bit hard on them because they did it. Could you have been a little differently with them? Could you have loved them a little more, like John wanted them to love one another here? Could you have helped them understand things better in a way that they could feel good about it? We need to love one another. Sometimes these people do things, they just need a friend? They need to just have somebody to talk to. There's been times I'd like to talk to somebody and just talk to them. Whether they said anything or not, it was irrelevant. All they needed to do was listen. Sometimes I can even sit down and talk to some of my friends, and I can understand myself better when I talk to them. And all I got to do is listen. Sometimes though, whenever we're sitting talking, listening to somebody else talk, do we not try to inject something into the conversation to solve their problems for them? And it might not be the right thing for them. We need to show them love. Whenever we do these things, sometimes it rejects them. It's like putting the north end of the magnets together. They want to push themselves apart. We need to love them. And we need to be able to be close to them. We don't want to push them away. I had a neighbor one time. He had problems with a lawnmower. He was kind of like me. He didn't have a lot of money, and his lawnmower quit. And he didn't let me know about it for a while. I wondered why his grass was getting a little bit high. But I went over there. When I did find out, I went over there and cut his grass for him. But I waited till he was gone. He didn't find out about it for 3 months. And I'm not trying to brag about that now, but I say that because here's why I did it. Several years ago, I had a huge yard. I had a couple of emergencies come up, and one of my neighbors one day caught me in front of a couple of other people and gave me a hard time about my grass because I hadn't been able to get out there and cut it in a week and a half or 2 weeks. It was getting a little tall. And he gave me a real hard time about it. And the thing about it, he knew I had some emergencies come up. And he knew I was under the gun to do some other things. But yet he wanted to seem to me like he wanted to hurt my feelings in front of other people. When I found out my neighbor was having problems, I remembered that. And I went over there and cut his grass for him because I knew he was struggling with it. After I did find out, he was feeling bad about it. He felt bad that his grass was taller than anybody else's in the neighborhood. And I understood it then. Whenever he did finally find out, he came and he asked me point blank, "Did you cut my grass that time?" I said, "Okay, yeah, I cut your grass that time." He really didn't know what to do with it. All he could do was say thank you and left. And for a while, he didn't even talk to me at all. And I still don't know why that is, but we made up and everything's fine. But when we do something like that, when we do something tangible to take care of a need, sometimes it doesn't take much. And they feel, not only know, but feel the love of Christ. Because if you act like you're a Christian, and you get the word out that you're a Christian, and you do something like that, they know it. They know you're a Christian. There's been so many times through my life that I can look back and think now that I wish I'd have done something different. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here this morning because we're all here. We gathered around that table of love that Christ set forth for us 2,000 years ago. But I think sometimes, and I know I'm there, we need to concentrate just a little bit more on the love of Christ and showing it to other people. Can we do that? Can we make people feel the love of Christ and show them what a Christian really is? Then they will be more apt to follow Him and understand and be saved and be with us when we go to heaven. Thank you.
Let's stand.